Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson on applying difference of two squares to solve problems. In mathematics, the difference of two squares is square number subtracted from another square number. Let's look at some examples of square numbers. So we have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and so on. Now, why do we call these square numbers? We call them square numbers because 1 can be written as 1 squared, because 1 times 1 squared, it means 1 times 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. 4 can be written as 2 squared. We can write 9 as 3 squared, 16, 4 squared, 25, 5 squared, and so on. So you can see that we got the square numbers by squaring some numbers. So that is why we call them square numbers. And when we look at the definition of difference of two squares, we are subtracting one square number from another square number. So we can have 16 minus 9. Now this is difference of two squares because we can change this 16 and write it as 4 squared minus, and then change the 9 and write it as 3 squared. So you can see that we have something squared minus something squared, and the difference is the sign in between, which is the subtraction sign. So anytime you hear what is the difference between one number and one number, the sign that comes to mind is the subtraction sign. So this one here, the expression or the mathematical operation here is different from 4 squared plus 3 squared. This is not difference of two squares because the operator between the two numbers is addition. So this one cannot be difference of two squares. So we are going to look at some examples and see how we can solve problems that are difference of two squares. Now, in the first example, we are asked to factorize x squared minus 9. Now, this is a quadratic expression because the highest power of the variable, which is x, is 2. And we know that the standard form of any quadratic expression is ax squared plus bx plus c. And also this expression is difference of two squares because we can write this as x squared minus 3x, 3 squared. So we have changed this to be something squared minus something squared. So when we are asked to factorize this expression, we are going to compare the standard form with the expression given so that we can get the values of a, b, and c. So when we compare that, we can see that our a is positive 1 because that is the coefficient of x squared. So we have a to be 1, b. Now we do not have anything like something x, so our b in this expression is 0, and then the constant, which is the c, so c is equal to minus 9. So now that we have our a, b, and c, let's start with the first step. So the first step is to find our ac, and our ac is 1 times minus 9, which is equal to minus 9. And then the second step, we find two factors that multiply to get minus 9. And then when we add these two factors, we will get 0 because that is our b. b is 0. So when we write our minus 9, what two factors can we find? We can find 3 minus 3, because 3 times minus 3 is equal to minus 9, and 3 plus minus 3 is equal to 0. So we have found those factors. Now the next step we are going to look at is to rewrite the expression using these factors that we found. So we are going to write this as x squared minus 3x plus 3x minus 9, because minus 3x plus 3x is 0. So we've not done anything. We've not changed the expression here. We have just rewritten it using the factors that we found. So now what we are going to do is we are going to take the first two terms and then the last two terms and factorize. So if we take that, we are going to take x squared minus 3x, and when we factorize that, we have x out, so we are going to get x minus 3. Then we take the last two terms, which is 3x minus 9, and when we factorize that, we have 3 out, x minus 3. And when you do your factorization this way, after you factorize the first two terms and then the last two terms, what you have in the bracket must be the same. So in the first one, what we have in the bracket is x minus 3. The second bracket, we have x minus 3. If you don't get these things to be the same, then you must know that your factorization is wrong. So now that we have factorized, we are going to substitute the first one into the expression. So instead of x squared minus 3x, we are going to write it as x minus 3. And then instead of 3x minus 9, we'll write it as plus 3x minus 3. So now we have x minus 3 being common to both terms. So we are going to bring x minus 3 out. So we have x minus 3. And when we take x minus 3 from the first term, we'll be left with x. And then x minus 3 from the second term will be left with plus 3. So this is our factorization for the expression on top. Now, if you compare the basis of the two terms, after you've written it as difference of two squares, you will realize that in the bracket we have x minus 3 and then x plus 3. So once you write your expression as something squared minus something squared, then all you have to do is you pick the first term and then the base of the first term, which is x, and then you subtract the base of the second term. So it's going to be x minus 3. And then in the second bracket, you pick the base of the first term and you add the base of what? The second term, which is the plus 3. So this is how difference of two squares is done. So let's see how we can use difference of two squares to solve some problems. And one thing I want to mention is that when you expand this bracket, you are going to get x squared minus 9. You can try that and see. So in the first question, we have 4x squared minus 9. So first you have to write it as something squared minus something squared. So you have to rewrite this. And the 4 is a square number. So we can write 4 as 2 squared. So the first term will be 2x all squared, because 2x times 2x is equal to 4x squared. And then you have to write the 9 as something squared, which is minus 3 squared. This is how it should be. So somebody will ask, what about 6x squared 6x squared minus 9. Is it also difference of two squares? To write this as difference of two squares, now the 6 is not a square number. So if you want to write this as difference of two squares, then it's going to be root 6x all squared minus 3x, because root 6 squared is 6. So this is how it should be. And you know, 4 is a square number. So if you square root 4, you are going to get 2. So in this one, because it is difference of two squares, is going to be, we pick the base of the first term, which is 2x, and then we subtract the base of the second term, minus 3. And we open our second bracket, we pick the base of the first term and add the base of the second term to it. So this, we have factorized this one. In the second question, we are going to rewrite this as 3y all squared, because 9 is a square number, and the 16 is going to be 4 squared. So now that we've written this, we are going to pick the base of the first term, which is 3y, and subtract the second term, the base, so minus 4, and open our bracket. We write 3 plus 4, and this is the factorization. So when you expand the two brackets, you are going to get 9y squared minus 16. So let's look at this example. So in this example, they have done it something squared minus something squared. So this is difference of two squares. So all we have to do is we pick the base, which is 105, minus the second one, 95. Now you can choose to bring the plus first, and then there's the second bracket, you do the minus. You will get the same answer because you are multiplying. So we open the bracket, and then we do 105 plus 95. So this 105 minus 95 will give us 10, and the two brackets are multiplying. So we are going to get 10 times this one will give us 200. So 10 times 200 will give us 2000. So we have solved this without using a calculator. Let's look at the second one. This is difference of two squares, because we have something squared minus something squared. So we just write 66.4 plus, this time let's try the plus first, plus 33.6. And then the second bracket, we have 66.4 minus 33.6. Yes. And this one gives us 100 times this one will give us 32.8. And if you multiply this by that, you are going to get 3,280. So this one has been solved without a calculator. So this is how we apply difference of two squares to solve problems. This brings us to the end of today's lesson. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson. Please subscribe to my channel and also share with your friends and families to subscribe. Thank you, and see you in my next video.